Right now, the future of Destiny 2 is incredibly uncertain. If you're watching this video, this is a sentence that you've heard many times over the years. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that we're all hearing that phrase now more than ever, and not without good reason. Bungie's near radio silence concerning Destiny has persisted for months at this point, despite the fact that the Destiny 2 community is clamoring for any sort of reassurance that the game that they love, the game they want to love, has a future. It's understandable why everyone's feeling this way right now, but I disagree with the idea that the future of Destiny is unclear or uncertain. In my eyes, the future of Destiny as a franchise is more clear-cut than it has ever been. I decided to make this video because as I've followed, played, and enjoyed this game, I've noticed a few things. And there are things that I don't see anyone else talking about. I don't expect what I have to say to reassure anyone, but I hope I can provide you guys with an explanation of where things sit right now with Destiny, how we got here, and what possibilities the future may hold. First, a disclaimer. I don't have any inside knowledge or concrete evidence to support my theories. I'm not a games journalist, and I'm not even a Destiny content creator. I'm just a guy who enjoys Destiny. My observations and theories are just that, theories. Make of that what you will. To explain what I think is going on with Destiny, we must first return to Lightfall. I'm not here to critique the quality of Lightfall. There are already countless other videos out there that do a better job of that than I ever could. What I will say is this. From its half-baked, incoherent narrative to the nearly identical opening and closing cinematics, it was clear to everyone, myself included, that Lightfall was never intended to be anything other than filler content. This isn't news to anyone. It was blatantly, painfully obvious. But the thing that bothered me at the time, and that continued to bother me for years, was one simple question. Why was Lightfall filler content? If Bungie simply needed more time to polish up the final shape, why not simply delay its release, which is precisely what they ended up doing anyways? Think about it. The final shape was the conclusion to the entire Light and Darkness saga. Bungie could have pushed its release back an entire year if they had to. We all still would have purchased it, and we all would have played it. We might not have been thrilled about it, but we would have waited, especially when the last expansion we got was the phenomenal Witch Queen campaign. Why spend untold millions on a half-baked expansion, which Bungie knew was half-baked, instead of playing for time and pouring all that effort and all those resources into the expansion they wanted to make? I mean, can you imagine the sort of expansion the final shape would have been if Bungie had poured all their time and resources into it for a solid 2 years? But that didn't happen. Instead, we got the Veil. We got...
Well, the uglier they are, the harder they fall, right? No? Come on.
fucking Nimbus. So why did Bungie choose to go a different route? Well, I don't think it had anything to do with the final shape. I think it had everything to do with Marathon. Hear me out. We don't like to think of corporations, revenue, and profit margins when we think about games or game development. But to make sense of the existence of Lightfall, and of many of the decisions that have been made about Destiny in the time since then, I think we have to make a shift from looking at Bungie as a group of individuals who make games to seeing them as a business entity. You must understand that Bungie is not a development studio that regularly puts out medium-budget, single-player games like Supergiant Games, and they don't have an evergreen IP from which they can continue to bring in seemingly endless profits without significant investment, such as Fortnite. Like any company, Bungie needs to maintain a steady stream of revenue to be successful. Here's the truth, as I've come to see it. Bungie knew that there was going to be a steep drop-off in player counts following the final shape, and they knew there wasn't anything they could do about it. The final shape marked the end of a 10-year roadmap they had established back in 2012, and if that drop-off happened in 2023, when Lightfall was released, they would have had nothing with which to replace that lost revenue. They knew they couldn't sustain themselves from February of 23, when Lightfall released, to their projected release date for Marathon in September of 2025. But, if they could maintain the popularity of Destiny until the summer of 2024, maybe, just maybe, they could keep themselves afloat. Now, I don't look down on Bungie for being a corporation. I can't even criticize their way of thinking, to be honest. How many of you could keep up with all your bills if your income were cut by 2/3, which is how much the player counts dropped following the final shape? I know that I couldn't. Let's forget about marketing, word of mouth, and all the other factors that factor into game sales for a moment. Let's just assume that the numbers for the Edge of Fate would have been more or less the same, no matter how hard Bungie cooked for that release. After all, most players who left Destiny following the final shape didn't leave because they thought the Edge of Fate looked like ass. They left because the story that they were there to see ended. Now, we don't have access to Bungie's financial records, but I think we can piece some things together using what information we do have. Some of these numbers are just rough estimates, but they are based off real data, and they're solid enough to draw some conclusions from. The peak concurrent player count on Steam for the final shape was 314,000, and it had a price tag of $50. Each one of those concurrent players would have had to purchase the expansion, which adds up to a total of $15.7 million in revenue. For simplicity's sake, let's pretend that was the total revenue for the expansion. I realize that Steam sales only represent one slice of the pie, but I doubt that the size of that slice has changed much over the past couple of years, which means that this is still a suitable representation. Now let's look at the Edge of Fate. Peak concurrent player count was 99,000, and with a $40 price tag, that works out to $3.9 million in revenue. For the sake of this example, let's pretend, just pretend, that Bungie spent $10 million developing the final shape. They didn't, of course. The estimates I've seen put the total cost between $170 to $210 million, but we can pretend. And again, you can be damn sure that Bungie knew that they were not going to be bringing in near as much revenue for any expansion following the final shape. Period. So what do? They dial back the amount of content they're developing, and they lay off a vast number of employees because they need to get their costs under, let's say, $2 million so they can make a profit off of the Edge of Fate. It's worth bearing in mind that this is all well past the Sony acquisition. Bungie can't just eat the loss on an expansion. They have to make money off of whatever they develop now. To be perfectly clear, I'm not defending the studio's decision to lay off hundreds of developers, and I'm not excusing the lack of content that we've been dealing with since the final shape. Both those things suck. We all know what has happened with Bungie and with Destiny these past few years. I've just finally come to understand why these things have happened. So, let's jump forwards a bit to where we are now, looking at this again from a business perspective. Marathon is just around the corner, and despite all of its ups and downs, it's shaping up to look like it'll be the start of yet another hit Bungie franchise. Pre-orders are up, community sentiment is up. Suddenly, Destiny isn't Bungie's only cash cow anymore. I'm sure Bungie would still like to keep Destiny alive, so long as it makes financial sense for them to do so, but they don't have to keep it alive anymore. There's a key phrase in what I just said: so long as it makes financial sense for them to do so. Now that Bungie has Marathon, things have changed. For years, Bungie has been in a position where Destiny would take the studio with it if it died. That pressure is gone now. Consequently, the moment that Bungie sees Destiny costing them more money to make than it's bringing in, they're gonna put it on life support. End of story. Having said all that, it's not all doom and gloom. We've all wondered why Bungie hasn't been working on a Destiny 3. It would have been such a killer way to follow up the final shape, or even Episode Heresy. Are the developers that out of touch? That clueless? That's certainly how it seems when viewing Bungie as a group of people who make video games. And maybe they are out of touch, but I don't think so. I'm sure there are many people at Bungie who are much better at predicting consumer behavior than we are. It's not about what the studio wants, and it's not about what they think the community wants. At the end of the day, it's just business to them. The bottom line is that Bungie doesn't have a big enough team to develop a D3 while still developing content for D2. I don't think they ever did, to be honest. Hell, look at Marathon. Marathon didn't stop looking like Roblox and Tarkov had a baby and colored it with dayglow markers until the content rollout for Destiny 2 slowed down to a trickle. Coincidence? Somehow, I don't think so. Here's the takeaway from all this. Bungie is never going to start putting serious work into Destiny 3 until Destiny 2 is put on life support. Honestly, I'm okay with that. Given the choice between finding something else to play for a few years, only to come back to a brand spanking new game on the one hand, and continuing to receive lackluster content for Destiny 2, only to have that fizzle out and die after a couple more years on the other hand, I choose Destiny 3. Full stop. I know quite a few people who used to play Destiny, but have moved on to other games. I've asked every single one of them if they would come back for a Destiny 3, and they've all given me the exact same answer. Hell yes. So, what do all you guys think? Would you be okay with D2 going into maintenance mode in the hopes that we can eventually get a D3? Let me know in the comments. Aztecross, as someone near and dear to the Destiny community, I'd especially like to get your take on these theories I've cooked up. Am I onto something here, or am I way off the mark? In any case, I hope that you all found this information interesting, and I hope you have a wonderful day.